My name is Wendy Minty. I am the Chief Community Liaison here at Tokeativity, and I am so pleased to be joined by Danielle Simone Brand today, author of Weed Mom. Thanks for being here, Danielle. How are you?
Thanks so much, Wendy. I'm good. Doing well. How about you?
Doing very well. Excited for spring and all the things that come along with that. So all
Definitely.
smiles over here. Thanks so much for being here with us today. Super excited to chat with you about your book and all things Canna Moms. Why don't we go ahead and get started? You want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me on. I love Tokeativity. Let's just get that out of the way first. Everything that you do, I think is, so well done, and the message is really on point, and, the vibes that you bring are just fantastic. So I'm thrilled to be here. And so, I'm Danielle Simone Brand. I have a diverse background in academia and in yoga teaching and wellness coaching, and as a freelance writer. So I kind of bring all of that together in my book, really bringing this sort of personal perspective and this wellness and self-care approach, but also the ability to look at research and to synthesize, facts and information, and to write it in a way that people can connect with, that's accessible. So that's a little bit about my background. I was writing about cannabis and about parenting kind of separately for a while before this book came about. And I noticed that people were starting to come to me, and especially moms were starting to come to me with their questions about cannabis. And so that's kind of where this book came from. And we can get into a little bit more of that later if you like. But these days I write about cannabis. I still write about parenting. I write a bit about psychedelics, and I talk about the whole Canna Mom thing, the Canna Mom movement that I'm just so excited to be a part of.
Oh, well, your work in the world is amazing. And, from an industry perspective, integral to this pocket of Canna Mom inside the industry as a whole. And I'm just so excited to dig into that with you. Knowing you in the way that I do over the course of time with Tokeativity, you are just such a light in this industry and such a powerful voice for good and, quality information and education, which is often hard to find in this space. So thanks for, being you and doing this, showing up to share this information in a way that's meaningful. It really means a lot to a lot of people and a lot of moms I know. So gosh, I mean, where do we start? I guess what really inspired you to do this work? I mean, aside from being a freelance writer and just kind of falling into that, I'm a parent and I use cannabis and this is a cool thing, what really drove you to write this book and do this work?
It came out of my personal journey, my personal evolution on cannabis, I should say. And I started as a skeptic, as, I didn't vote it down or anything. I voted for legalization living in California. I never thought it should be illegal or anyone should go to jail, but I just did not think it was for me. And I didn't think it was a wellness tool. And so when I actually figured that out kind of later in life, I mean, not late, but, my mid to late 30s really, and I already had 2 kids and was just, entrenched in my life and all that, and thought cannabis wasn't really a part of that. When I realized, wow, this is a wellness tool. It's a self-care tool. It's obviously medicine. This is something that a lot of moms I know personally could benefit from, or actually are benefiting from, but they're afraid to tell anybody about it. Yeah, right. The canna closet is real. So, so it was my own realization, and then the intellectual, definitely the intellectual aspect of learning about cannabis, learning how it bridges so many different interesting subjects. Cannabis, bridges science and policy and business and obviously social justice and so many different aspects of life that are interesting to me anyway. So, it just came together really, really naturally for me. And as I started writing more and people started recognizing me as someone who knew something about cannabis, the questions were pouring in. And I realized, oh yeah, there's a real need. There's a real lack of knowledge, especially on the part of moms who might be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more, reserved about diving deep into the legal marketplace. And they needed a guide. I felt they needed a guide to help kind of smooth that path. And then also, I was motivated by the many Canna moms out there that I just referenced who didn't feel maybe like they had, legitimacy is not the right word, but who felt like, I don't know, there is a movement and it's coalescing, but having a book is like, it's a very tangible thing to hold up and be like, okay, there's research here, there are argument points here, there are ways I can talk to my kids and family and, skeptics in my life through this resource. So that's something that I wanted to help provide. Yeah, so that's where it came from.
Well, that's so important. I mean, even outside of being a canna mom necessarily, so many people with the, ongoing legalization and normalization of this plant, that is a huge piece of this, is being in that green closet and being afraid to talk about your consumption, whether it be truly a medicinal wellness tool or just recreational or in any capacity. So many people are so scared to share this or to ask questions or find out more. And so I think, of course, normalization is a huge passion point of mine. But just, any avenue to help that along is so valuable, especially, when you add in all the layers of, being a cannabis user and a parent, like, am I going to lose my kids? Am I going to go to jail? Am I going to be in trouble? All of these things, compound in that. And so it's so necessary and important that, people have these resources. And so just, thank you for providing that and being that voice and that resource for women and moms in this space. How, and that's kind of a good bridge to my next question, was just that how does being a weed mom, or how does your book Weed Mom, would you say, intersect with, these other avenues that are important in the industry, equity, plant medicine normalization, feminism, just greater legalization as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I see it as very much, baked in together, shall we say. It's all intertwined. We know that racism was a huge part of prohibition and the drug war, and that communities of color have been disproportionately impacted from the very beginning and continue to be by, by prohibition of cannabis specifically, but by the drug war in general. So I think that it's imperative that consumers today, people who love and enjoy the plant, even just the canna curious, know about that history and know that we can actually impact the way things go by our choices, by the sorts of products that we choose to consume, by the ways that we talk about the industry, by our advocacy, even like our small donations of $25 or whatever to to organizations working to end prohibition or to end to bring people out of prison. Like, there's so many different ways that we as moms can impact this industry, and I think that this whole conscious consumerism movement is big now, and I want to see it extend even more to cannabis. People think about where their fruits and vegetables come from and where their animal products come from, very important. And cannabis too, like, we can help shape this industry for the better by choosing weed from women, buying weed from women, buying weed from BIPOC folks, buying weed from people who were really impacted by the drug war. And there's some tools to do that now, that we have some like certifications and ways to do some research and figure that out. So I think that's super, super important. And I want this burgeoning Cannabis movement to be about that, to be about sustainability and equity and just bringing more good into the industry, because we have power. We have power with our words and with our dollars. And then, women's empowerment generally is incredibly important to me. And for me, this whole Cannabis movement is about empowerment. It's about health empowerment, personal empowerment, feeling, I keep using this word empowered, but yeah, feeling empowered to, to take our health and wellness to a degree into our own hands. I mean, obviously there are, important people that we need to consult in our process and especially for using cannabis medically. But really, I think that, starting low, going slow with clean cannabis is very low risk for most people. And so that's what I encourage people to do, is to experiment with their bodies, pay attention, see how it feels. There's lots of different products out there and different ways that they can affect us. So, I want women to be empowered so they are economically empowered, so that they feel well and happy and healthy and able to, raise this next generation with the kind of love and consideration and care that's going to make the world a better place. So to me, it's just like, it's all intertwined.
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. It's so true. And I think that's a good, kind of touch point also on, I was just going to ask you what led you to write this book. It sounds like you're, clearly an authority on, many different aspects of this plant and the industry and, equity and all of these things. I know that you could talk about, and take that any direction. Why parenting? Why moms?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it just, it speaks to my soul. Moms, it's the experience I'm going through right now. My kids are 9 and 12. When I started writing about cannabis, they were younger. And so, being a parent is a huge part of my identity and was then too. And also the majority of people I socialize with happen to be moms. And so it's my tribe, it's my community. And I want to uplift. I want to uplift moms, of all different backgrounds and privileges and accessibilities. Like there's a real patchwork in this country of who gets access and how that plays out. And I want all of us moms, no matter where we live or what our skin color or ideas are, to be able to access plant medicine.
I love that. I love that. What would you say is like the most important thing that you learned about moms and cannabis while you were working on this project?
Oh gosh, it's hard to say one thing. I mean, I had a lot of aha moments while interviewing women. I interviewed tons of canna moms, and I also interviewed experts, science people and policy people, and trying to just really tease out different aspects of the plant, from science to history to policy to the social aspect of it. And so, gosh, what did I learn? I learned, first of all, that a lot more women are using cannabis than we think. So many
over the course of my work.
Exactly. That attitudes, like personal attitudes, are changing a lot more quickly than laws are changing. Even though laws are also changing quickly, we still, are in this place of lack of significant movement at the federal level. And, we all know that the polls say people favor cannabis. So, people publicly, like, they say it should be legal, but then in terms of being able to admit it to other people, that's a totally different step. So I found there's still a big stigma about that. So I found that. I also found that wellness uses are this interesting kind of middle space between, I think, medical on one side and so-called recreational or adult use. And so much of the ways that I noticed women and moms using cannabis is for wellness. And that might mean, a mental health boost, right? Relief from anxiety and depression, ADHD, PTSD. There are lots of different, ways. And sometimes those women didn't have like a clinical diagnosis, but they knew they were experiencing those things, those conditions, and they also felt the cannabis helped them. So, that's a wellness use in my view. Obviously, if someone is using cannabis to treat a mental health diagnosis, then I think they should work with a knowledgeable practitioner, someone who's, cannabis friendly, et cetera, to help them through, and especially if there's medication involved. But, I'm talking about kind of the subclinical things that we all deal with: anxiety, difficult moods, lack of sleep, irritation with your kids if you're a mom, because it happens. And then other wellness uses I found, sleep. Women were telling me that they were, that cannabis was a game changer for them for sleep. It was that for me as well. Enhancing sex and intimacy is another one. And, that's not just with heterosexual couples. That's with, I interviewed all sorts of moms in different kinds of relationships and found that cannabis helped them shift from sort of their mom brain or their work brain into more of a, a sensual brain, a way that they could connect with their partners. And that's wellness to me. I mean, it's fun. You could even call it medical too, but it's wellness. It's about, sexual health and empowerment. There's that word again. So lots of wellness ways. That's another really cool thing I found about while researching.
I love that. And it's true, when you think about wellness and what that means, there's the things that come to mind really quickly, of course, but then, I mean, taking that a step further and like really considering all the ways in which you can be well, from your sexual health. A lot of people probably wouldn't initially consider that like wellness, and it's like, no, that definitely
Yeah. I'm
You
gonna
know, and there's all these different ways, like, can you quiet your mind and shift from that work brain, that mom brain, to even sleep brain, you know, so many different things, and ways that cannabis can assist in that is so important, and what a cool thing to learn, and I find that I learn more about that all the time, and talking with different people, and interacting in the ways that I do too. Um,
Yeah, and transitions, I think cannabis is such a great, helper in transitional moments. It is for me, when I transition from, it's not like I ever totally shut off work these days, but okay, no, I do sometimes. But, even though there is still work that lasts into the evening, kind of the majority of my work day ends around, 5 or 6 or something like that. And the ability to shift then into a space where I can interact in a present, loving way with my kids, where I'm not like, oh, got to check Instagram and oh, better return that email. I can actually just be with them. That's huge. And I found that so many moms I interviewed said the same thing. Just these transitional moments. Cannabis is like a ritual and something that helps them tap into themselves.
I love that, and this actually sparked a question that I just thought of, and something that I've heard snippets of in talking with other parents. I personally am not a parent, and so relating to that canna mom is challenging for me in the sense of I'm not a human mother. I'm a dog mom and a plant mom and auntie and all those things. But with as a parent, as a mom, how or do you find that cannabis helps you um, better interact with your kids in the sense of like being able to find yourself at play with them and in these spaces where maybe it would be more challenging as an adult who's thinking about um, you know emails and work and writing and social media and promotion and like all the shit that goes on with doing what you do. How do you find those moments to like, oh, I'm going to play with my kids and like be silly and not be, oh shit, I need to do this. Oh shoot, I need to do that.
Totally, totally. I mean, that is a huge help for me and for countless women that I interviewed in terms of interacting with their kids. And that's a taboo. Let's just, say that up front for people to say, I smoke weed and I'm a better parent, or I can interact, more lovingly with my kids. That, for a lot of people are like, oh, what are you talking about? You have to be high to parent. And that's not at all true. I mean, the first thing I would say is that there's a wide spectrum of usage, right? We know this for cannabis. You don't have to get, stoned AF. You can get right? You can microdose, you can moderately dose. If we know our bodies and we know our limits, there are ways we can totally consume and parent. I don't recommend driving or rock climbing or scuba diving or whatever you might otherwise do with your older kids. But, so in those low stakes moments, I think that cannabis provides so much in terms of like, like I was talking about that transitional, just taking a step away to oneself, maybe engaging in a little bit of self-care, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of deeper breathing, a little bit of, just appreciating nature or plants, house plants, things like that, in ways that can actually then aid the way that we interact with our kids. Totally. Life is just nonstop these days. And if you're an entrepreneur and if you work for yourself or, just in so many industries today, it's nonstop. And, so yeah, that transitional moment of being able to then enter the space and with an open heart and with a clearer mind, like that is beautiful. So I color with my kids, I cook with them, we garden, we love to we grow vegetables in the summer, we have a small yard to take care of. Like these are fun things that we do together. We read together, I cuddle with my kids at night, even though they're 9 and 12, they still let me. And and those are the kinds of things that I can linger over just so much better with cannabis as part of my routine.
I love that. Do you grow cannabis plants?
No, so where I live, I can't, unfortunately, but that's a bucket list for sure thing.
Here in Oregon, I am pretty plugged into like the regenerative farming community also in like another subsection of my life. And a lot of my farmer friends are all parents, and that's like the highlight of their, life and their farm is being able to share the plant and its process with their kids and like seeing their, you know, children in the garden and interacting with these plants as they're growing. It's so beautiful. And I mean, that is something that's always really inspired me. You know, to be able to share things like that and just what that looks like and why it does that and how it's an integral part of, you know, such a greater thing. And it's just so beautiful. So I hope that you get to garden with your kids.
I do
Um,
too, and I love that. I absolutely love that because I think that goes a long way toward helping break the stigma and the fear when we see that it's a plant that grows in the ground and you can see its life cycle. And I know parents who do this too with their kids, and you know, and their kids even help to care for the plants maybe until the final stages when there's harvest. Even though some parents do choose to do that too, and yeah, it's I think that that's something that for all ages is helpful for reducing the stigma, you know, just connecting with it as an actual organic material, you know.
I love that. Another subsector of my life is like some environmental justice work and how that ties in with regenerative farming.
Yeah.
And here in Oregon, I lent to some policy work that was talking about it being safer for kids to run in a cannabis field than it is for them to run in a city park, just based on what the standards of care for like public land care is and what public facilities are using on soccer fields, on parks and things like that, like all these nasty chemicals to maintain the lawn integrity and things like that. And it's like, well, the state regulates what we're allowed to spray on usable cannabis. And so technically, yeah, it's way safer for them to run through our cannabis field than it is this city park. And it's like things like that and conversations like that. And this, you know, I think are so integral into the normalization. And it's just, you know, all plays into that, you know, like you were saying, bigger intertwined thing that is, you know, the movement that we're working towards.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely. I'm all for that. And I'll just add one more thing there that,
it.
you know, that we can also make better choices in terms of consumers with our cannabis, right? So, you know, there are these certifications that are coming out now, like Sun and Earth and Clean Green and Kind, that actually can, you know, show you that a company's claims to being environmentally, you know, sustainable or regenerative can be backed up. And so I really appreciate that we have more options there. And I'm also a big fan of quality sun grown because I think that's just way better for the environment.
Shout
Yes.
out sun-grown farmers forever.
Totally.
The people look at me, I guess, which is weird to think, as an authority on, you know, cannabis in general, like friends that are outside of the industry. And, you know, I always tell anybody that'll listen, like, oh, I would choose outdoor full season sun-grown cannabis over indoor every single time. And like, no, what?
I know it's like sacrilege, but if it's well done, you know, that it's the best. It's a plant and it's meant to grow outdoors.
Yes, and you can try, and there's, I mean, amazing technology, don't get me wrong, the things that people can do and provide that opportunity in places that maybe, you know, the climate isn't as supportive for this type of plant, sure, but you cannot replicate Mother Nature. You just can't quite do it. And then, I mean, that's a whole nother, you know, rabbit hole of things and terroir and all of that. So before we get too far off track here, God,
Yeah.
we love weed or something.
Maybe.
Okay, back on track here. Do you feel like this work that you're doing with like the Cannabis movement and all of that is ongoing for you personally, even though like your book is published now? And so I feel like I've never written anything and certainly never published anything, but I feel like that's like the goal attained. You know, you're published, it's out there, it's done, you completed the product. But are you still like, is this work constant for you?
It is. It's definitely ongoing. I found myself part of this movement, part of this advocacy community now of Canna Moms. And, you know, a lot of it is on social media. Definitely some of it is in person. Tokeativity is a part of that for me too, you know, being part of that community. But I absolutely think that these conversations must continue. And so I'm not going to stop talking about it for a while, probably. I still do podcasts and radio, and you know, we do clubhouses every Sunday to talk about specific Canna Mom issues, and there's a ton to talk about. Each week we have a different topic, and we never run out of things to say. And also, I just love being part of this community of other Canamom entrepreneurs, because we can support each other and we can collaborate. That is just like the best part of this space, is how much collaboration I'm seeing.
Isn't it such a beautiful thing? That's why I love this industry so much. I've never felt, a lot of people say like, oh, collaboration over competition. And it's like, okay, but like, I feel like within the cannabis industry specifically, like you see that and you feel it. And it is so refreshing to actually, hear people say that and then show up in that way.
Yes.
I love that.
100%.
I love that. Do you want to, you mentioned podcasts and radio and stuff. Do you want to plug any podcasts that you're on that are, episodes that people should check out?
Oh, well, let's see. Some recent ones I did were Enhance Your Life, the Wana Brands podcast. I did an interview with Montel Williams that's coming out kind of soon on the list. It's so fun.
Oh whoa.
He has a podcast specifically on cannabis called Let's Be Blunt with Montel, and so much fun. So I got to talk to him recently. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Cool. I will be on the lookout for that. I definitely want to listen in. And then kind of also on this, do you think or do you have any plans for a second book?
I am fascinated by the psychedelic space, as many of us are. I feel like there's so much crossover with the plant medicine movement. And I do write a bit about psychedelics for Double Blind. I would like to explore more psychedelics for moms in the future. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, whether it's going to be more about microdosing or whether there'll be some, deep dives into how to use particular substances for growth and healing. But I'm all about growth and healing and evolution and pushing this whole thing forward. So, that's an interest for sure.
Excellent. Well, come visit in Oregon. We are ramping up to lean into psychedelics for therapy. Come visit and check that out. I would love to, read your perspective on that and how that plays in, especially for parents. Again, I think that's such an important topic. And even much like with cannabis, I'm sure we'll see, like this is legalized now and recognized as a form of therapy, but like, God forbid I tell anybody I'm considering using, psychedelics. I can just foresee, especially within parents, and being a parent, I can only imagine, is so freaking hard and so much on your psyche, on your psychology, your mental state, your mental health, all of those things. I see that postpartum and just all of these different avenues that maybe psychedelics could be really beneficial. And I hope that people feel empowered to explore that, and maybe you could help that. So
yeah, I hope so too.
Hopefully we'll see that down the pipeline somewhere. Gosh, well, I'm conscious of your time. We've almost been chatting for a half an hour here. Are there any last thoughts, knowledge bombs that you want to leave us with in regard to the Canamom movement today, or just in general?
That's a great question. So, I think the most important thing to say is that everybody can have a role in this, and everyone can play a role. Whether it's a big one or a small one or a medium-sized one, like even if it's just talking to a few people in your life and helping to, start those conversations, change a few minds, or at least, open the possibility for them. That's one way we can contribute. If you're comfortable enough being out on social media as a cannabis consumer, I think, continuing to promote education and destigmatization in that way is important. Obviously, like I said earlier, the ways that we can help shape the industry with our choices, buying weed from women and BIPOC folks and people who, whose lives and livelihoods are seriously threatened by the drug war. I think that's another way. In California, there's an actual certification to find equity brands. I think it's just called equity certification. So that's pretty cool. I don't know of that in other states yet, but anyway, that's a another thing I think is really important. But basically, you know, whether you're a big player or a small player, we all can help change the narrative. And even just the way we talk to our kids can help change the narrative for this next generation, so that plant medicine is not so taboo, not so stigmatized, but people feel actually, you know, empowered and even welcomed into utilizing it for their well-being.
Mm. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for being here and just doing what you do. I can't say it enough that, you know, this is so important and so meaningful. You know, especially in the form of like a publication like this that's helpful and a resource. You know, you have no idea whose life you're impacting with this, and that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel really just fortunate to be able to contribute in some way to the conversation. And I'm just one of many. I mean, this is the first book for moms on cannabis, but there are lots of people talking about these subjects, and, you know, we're all sort of lifting each other up.
Well, thankful for that. Thankful for you. And yeah, this has been great. I appreciate you. And I hope you have a really good day.
Thank you. You too. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, same. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.